What's up, everybody? My name is Tony Lopez, and in this episode, I want to share with you how I started my business. Now, this goes back to 2016, and at that time, I was working 3 different jobs. I was tired of working a normal job and just trading my time for a paycheck, and was interested in building something for myself. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad has his business, my uncle had his business, and so I've always been around people that have businesses. And so for me, when I thought, man, how do I break out of the normal 9 to 5? I didn't think about other types of jobs that you could get. I was just thinking, man, the only way I know is to start a business. And so for about 6 months straight, all I did on my notepad, on my phone, is just take down notes for business ideas. Now, a business idea is basically you trying to solve a problem for someone else in exchange for the ability to get paid to do that. So I was thinking of all these different ideas, and a lot of times it's helpful to think about what are those things that bother you, those things that frustrate you, those things that you hate. And one of them for me was going to the gas station. I hated it. Right now we have electric cars, and we did back then, but they weren't very cool looking. And so I thought of a business that was going to be a mobile fueling company to go around and fuel up cars. Then I had a dating app idea. I was going to call it You and Two, where you and 2 friends go and hang out with someone else and 2 of their friends. And I thought it was a cool idea. At the time I was single, and that was another thing that was frustrating me. What I ended up doing, and I'm going to kind of fast forward here over some cool details that I'll share in other episodes, I was doing furniture delivery, and I stumbled upon a warehouse where they had built these shipping containers in the back of the warehouse, and they converted them into office space. And it looked really, really nice. And I thought, man, it would be really cool if you can convert one of those into more of a housing space. So later on that evening, I went and visited my parents, and I looked in my parents' backyard. I hadn't been there for about a month or so. And in the backyard, my dad had built my sister a tree house. Now, it wasn't just an ordinary tree house. It was pretty big. It was about 10 feet by 20 feet, had a sliding glass door on it, and aesthetically, it looked pretty nice. I remember walking inside of it, and I asked my dad, I said, how much did it cost you to build this? And he said he did it for $1,000. And at that time, I was thinking to myself, man, that is how much I'm spending in rent every single month. For me, rent was one of my frustrations. It was one of the things I was bothered by. Why am I working so hard to pay for this bill for a place that I'm rarely even ever at? I just sleep there. And the truth is I'm a pretty minimalist kind of guy. I don't need a whole lot of space. I don't need a whole lot of things. But yet I found myself stuck spending $1,000 a month on this rent. And so when I figured out that my dad built that for $1,000, something clicked in my brain, and I thought, man, that container that I saw earlier, it'd be really cool to try to turn one of those into a home. And so that next morning, I ended up going online. I had the day off, and I was on Craigslist just looking up shipping containers. And sure enough, someone had built one out, but they were about a third of the way through the project, and they had to get out from underneath it. They were building it for a convention here in Las Vegas. And so I ended up purchasing it for a very good price. I got it for about $3,900. But an important side note here is that was literally all of my money. I didn't have a penny left to my name after I had provided that guy that payment. And so this was definitely a bootstrap situation for me. There was still a tremendous amount of work that needed to be done on that container, but I had the dream. And so I ended up transporting it to my parents' house, and over the course of the next 9 months, ended up converting that into a tiny home. My all-in cost was about $13,000. And what I would do is I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I would just save up as much as I could every single week and just put it into that particular container in terms of materials and any labor that I needed help with. And I had about 1 day off a week. And so that day was my day to work on the container. You know, fast forward, once it got completed, I ended up working with one of my friends that does video. He created an incredible video of that container. We posted it up on YouTube. And as a result, we were able to sell that first container. What I ended up doing is I took all of the money that I got from that unit. Cost on it was about $13,000. I had done most of the labor, so that was really just the cost for the materials. And I ended up selling it to someone in Central California for about $33,500. So you can see I made about $20,000 on that build. And at the time, you know, that was all my money invested to it. So really I now have $33,000 that was really the nest egg for me to now start my business. What I did from there is I ended up getting a warehouse space here in Las Vegas. It was a pretty small space, think it was under 1,000 square feet. My rent on that was about $950 per month. I invested in some tools and some machinery and was set up to do more builds. Now, with that YouTube video that I had launched, it had done really successful and was getting a tremendous amount of views. I actually launched my website the day before that YouTube video went out. So all of that traffic was now going to my website where I was collecting their information just in a contact form. And I remember having hundreds of leads within the first 3 weeks. Now, I didn't have a strong sales process. I was busy doing 10 different things at that time, but I was able to reach out to as many people as I could. And as a result of that, I locked in my second sale. Now, it was a very similar unit to the one that I had just designed, and I was able to sell it for a little bit more than my previous unit. Now, at this point, I had a really good friend of mine. He ended up helping me in terms of launching the business, and we worked side by side in the early days building out these shipping containers. And so me and him worked hard on this first one, and because we were working on it pretty much full time, we were able to get it done in just a couple of months. Now, an important side note here is that while I did launch the business and while I was working there about 40 hours a week, I didn't quit my other jobs. So I continued to maintain my other work that I was doing, and the purpose of that was essentially to make sure that I had enough money. I was a little bit scared to make that final leap and be all in on the business. And that actually extended for about 9 months. I didn't commit just to the business until I really felt like it had a little bit of a steady income coming in, a steady amount of leads, and I knew that I was going to be taken care of. And so I maintained those other jobs. And eventually after those 9 months, I transitioned to just focusing on the container home business. Now the business began to grow quickly, but it wasn't always smooth sailing. You know, after I finished that second unit, we ended up not having a third client lined up. And so we decided, hey, with the profits that we made, let's just go ahead and build an inventory model or a spec model that will then sell after the fact. And so we ended up developing that model. That took us about 3 months, but it didn't sell right away. And wintertime hit. And in some industries, winters can be a little bit difficult, and it's kind of similar for construction. And so we had a cold winter. I mean, we were kind of out of work. We had the warehouse. I had this overhead. I have these expenses. I'm trying to market it. I'm answering calls, trying to do sales. And I didn't have any more sales coming in. And so my buddy Chris did have a friend of his that needed a bunch of custom furniture, and Chris's background was custom furniture. And so we took on a miscellaneous project for a few weeks doing that. His parents needed a remodel done at their house. We took that on. And for about 6 weeks, that really bridged us through that gap. We eventually were able to sell that third unit. And lo and behold, we landed a big contract next. It was for 5 containers. They were going to Utah's Airbnb rentals. Now this was about a $250,000 contract for us. We just had a team of 2, me and Chris. And by this point, I was really only working in the builds about half time because the other half of the day I had to be in the office, which by the way, my office was a shed from Costco that I put in the warehouse. So got that for about $1,000. Kept me out of all the dust, and I was able to work on my computer and get some things done. Now with this big project looming, we had to bring on some employees. It was at that point that we ended up bringing on about 3 employees. Now 2 of them were full-time, 1 was part-time, and that was really the manpower that we needed to get these done. And we were also motivated that just how we sold these 5 units, we really believed we could sell a lot more. And so we expanded our warehouse. We went from the 1 warehouse, we added 2 of them right next to us, and now we had a lot more space to manage these builds. To kind of fast forward a little bit, we were able to grow, and our revenue that year was about $800,000. We ended up outgrowing that space, and so we had to move. Ultimately, our landlord was frustrated with us because we would have giant containers outside of our warehouse. So we had to find a better spot that we could build these at. We found an awesome location just down the street. We moved there, and business had picked up. So we probably at that point hired another 3 employees. We had a team of about 10 of us at that point, and we were building at one point in the yard, I think we had about 20 containers. Things were really picking up, things were getting really busy, but we also weren't always consistently busy. So we would have very peak seasons in the spring, summer, and fall, but then we still ran into that winter issue where we would bring on a team, we'd swell up to 10, 15 employees, but then winter would come, the work would slow down, and it was getting really difficult to maintain profitability in December, January, February, and March. And so it almost felt like all the money we made in the spring and summer, we are now giving it away in the winter. So we knew we had to make some tweaks to our business model. Now, I don't want to bore you with all the details from then till now, which is 2023, but I will tell you that we have evolved and made a tremendous amount of changes that have helped us to become a lot more profitable. One of the things we've done is we've leaned our business. So instead of bringing on a ton of employees in a busy season, we've now contracted a lot of our work out to independent contractors, and we've outsourced a lot of our work as well to other container home or container modification companies. We've also diversified our income. So instead of solely focusing on making sales of container homes, we diversified our product line to include container homes, container pools, container offices, A-frames, and camper vans. We've also created digital products. So we have how-to courses for how to build a container home, how to build an A-frame, how to rent out your RV on Outdoorsy. And we've also gotten into the rental game. So we have several rentals that are in Cedar City, Utah, a rental that's in Pahrump, and then we have multiple RV rentals that are based right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We've also optimized our office and our structure. And so basically on how we do things on the back end of the business have become a lot more optimized. So instead of needing so many managerial roles, it's a lot more of a streamlined process. You know, even just 1 year ago, we ended up having about 3 layers of management, from a general manager to a project manager to a lead builder to additional supporting office staff. And we've leaned down from there to really just a very lean, small team that is still able to expand and take on a lot of work. This episode, I just wanted to give you a big overview picture of how I got started in business, also why I got started in business. At the end of the day, it's a lot better to plant and tend to your own garden than to tend to someone else's garden. You know, if you have your own garden, as that thing begins to grow and flourish, you get to receive the benefits of it. However, if you're working for somebody else, yeah, there's security, yeah, you get a paycheck, but at the end of the day, you're helping them grow their garden. And so it's important to make that jump, start your own business, start your own garden. It doesn't have to start in a huge way. I like this idea that I heard recently about small risks. So don't take a giant risk up front and, you know, I'm burning all the boats, I'm cutting the ropes, I'm going all in. You know, there's a time and a place for that, but more often than not, the best way forward is a small next step and a small risk. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and excited to put out more content on business as well as some other topics. And I did put together a free guide for you for those of you that are interested in starting your own business this year. This is going to help you navigate the best way to get started. And I'm going to share with you some of the biggest lessons that I've learned the hard way on what kind of businesses to possibly avoid and what kind of businesses are going to reap the most rewards for you. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you can do me a favor and hit that like button since this is our first video, look forward to seeing you in the next one.